We interrupt this program to bring you an important Wayfair message. Wayfair's got style tips for every home. This is Styles McKenzie helping you make those rooms sing. Today's style tip. When it comes to making a statement, treat bold patterns like neutrals. Go wild, like an untamed animal print area rug under a rustic farmhouse table from Wayfair.com. Arr, fierce. This has been your Wayfair style tip to keep those interiors superior.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Okay, so you know how sometimes there's a story that just feels like it has layers upon layers and you're not even sure where to start? Well, that's kind of what we're dealing with today with this whole Jonathan Majors situation.
Yeah, for sure. And it really does feel like we're trying to piece together a puzzle with so many different pieces, from legal proceedings to Hollywood insider gossip to trying to understand Majors himself.
Right. And for this deep dive, we've really gone deep, haven't we? News articles, entertainment websites, even going back to some of his earlier work, trying to see how we got to where we are now.
Absolutely. So we're looking at everything from Lovecraft Country to The Last Black Man in San Francisco, and of course, the elephant in the room, his role as Kang the Conqueror in the MCU.
Because let's be honest, that's what everyone's thinking about, right?
Right.
How do these legal issues impact one of Marvel's biggest upcoming villains?
Yeah, and that's really our mission today, isn't it? To try and understand the impact of all this on Majors' career, what it means for the MCU, and maybe even more importantly, what this all says about his path forward, both personally and professionally.
Because it really does feel like a case study in what happens when personal conduct and public image collide in the pressure cooker of Hollywood.
Exactly. So where do we even begin? I think the most logical place to start is with the allegations themselves and what happened in the courts.
Right back in March of 2023, we first heard about those pretty serious accusations of assault and harassment from Major's ex-girlfriend, Grace Jabari, and it immediately felt like a major turning point in his career.
It did. And of course, it all culminated in a courtroom in December of 2023 when the verdict came down.
And for those who might not be super familiar with the legal jargon, Majors was convicted on charges of third-degree assault and harassment.
Right. And it's important to be clear here that our understanding is based on the public record, the news reports, the court documents. And just to give some context, third-degree assault usually means some level of physical harm was caused, but it's not the most serious category of assault.
Got it. And speaking of serious, the professional fallout for Majors was pretty immediate and pretty huge.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Marvel Studios didn't waste any time. They cut ties with him almost as soon as the verdict came out.
And considering he was set to be like the next Thanos, the next big bad in the MCU, you have to wonder what that does to their whole carefully crafted plan.
It's a massive wrench in the works for sure. But what's even more interesting is how quickly and decisively these big studios act in these situations.
It makes you think, doesn't it? Was this a purely reactive move, or was there something else going on behind the scenes? Because even before the legal trouble, there were these whispers in the industry that Marvel might have been reconsidering their whole Kang-centric phase.
Right. Some reports suggested that maybe Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania didn't perform as well as they'd hoped, and that maybe they were already looking for a way to shift gears.
So the question is, did the legal situation just accelerate a decision that was already brewing?
It's definitely possible, and it really adds another layer to this whole story because it shows that these studios are always thinking about the bottom line, about what the audience wants and what's going to make them money.
And if you're talking about money, just look at what happened next. They announced this whole reimagining of the MCU's future, including the upcoming Avengers, Doomsday, and the rumor that just won't die about Robert Downey Jr. coming back as Tony Stark, but as Dr. Doom this time.
Talk about a plot twist, right?
Oh.
They completely changed direction overnight, and from a storytelling perspective, it's actually a pretty smart move.
Yeah, bringing in Dr. Doom opens up a whole new world of storylines and villains, and it gives them a way to maybe course correct after losing Kang.
It really shows how adaptable these massive film franchises have to be these days when something unexpected happens. They have to find a way to pivot, and sometimes at least to some pretty interesting creative choices.
For sure. And it wasn't just the MCU that took a hit. Majors also got dropped from a bunch of other high-profile projects.
Oh, yeah, like the Dennis Rodman biopic, 48 Hours in Vegas, which was generating a lot of buzz, and that adaptation of Walter Mosley's novel, The Man in My Basement, where he was supposed to star with Willem Dafoe. I mean, those are some big losses.
Absolutely, and it really highlights the risk that studios are unwilling to take when there's even a whiff of controversy attached to a project.
It's all about protecting their investment and their brand image, and you can't really blame them, can you? I mean, negative publicity can sink a film before it even hits theaters.
It's a tough reality, but it makes you think about what's more important here. public perception, or actual legal ramifications?
It's a complex question for sure,
Yeah.
and it's not always clear-cut.
Now, beyond the immediate professional fallout, Majors has also been talking a lot about personal rehabilitation, and he's made some pretty significant disclosures.
Right? He gave a very candid interview where he revealed that he'd been sexually abused starting at the age of 9, which is incredibly difficult and personal information to share publicly.
It is, and it kind of makes you reevaluate everything that's happened, doesn't it? Because now you're looking at his actions through the lens of someone who's gone through some very serious trauma.
Absolutely. And it raises a lot of questions about how much we should consider someone's past when we're judging their present behavior.
It also makes you think about the pressures of fame and how difficult it must be to deal with these kinds of personal issues in the public eye.
Especially when you're already facing intense scrutiny and criticism like Majors was.
Yeah, and in the midst of all this, he also made a pretty big personal move. He got married to actress Megan Good.
There's a private ceremony in Los Angeles just a few months after their engagement was announced,
Yeah.
and it kind of feels like a symbol of stability and a fresh start amidst all the chaos.
It does make you wonder, though, about the support systems that people in the public eye rely on during tough times.
It's got to be incredibly challenging to navigate these kinds of situations without a strong network of people you can trust.
Now, despite everything that's happened, Majors has also hinted that he's not giving up on his acting career. He's mentioned wanting to come back to both the MCU and the Creed franchise.
Wow, that's pretty ambitious considering everything that's gone down. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, it's one thing to say you want to come back, but it's another thing entirely to actually make it happen, especially in a world as image-conscious as Hollywood.
He's definitely facing an uphill battle, but there is a precedent for actors and actresses making comebacks after personal scandals and controversies.
It usually involves a lot of apologies, public image rehabilitation, and maybe even some time away from the spotlight to let things cool down.
Right, and it helps if you have people in your corner publicly supporting you, which Majors does.
Yeah, Michael B. Jordan, his co-star from Creed 3, has been pretty vocal about his support for Majors, praising his strength and resilience.
And that kind of public endorsement from a respected peer can go a long way in an industry where relationships and reputation are everything.
It can definitely sway public opinion and maybe even influence some of those decision makers who are hesitant to work with Majors right now.
So yeah, it'll be fascinating to see how this all plays out. Will he be able to mount a successful comeback, or is this the end of his career as we know it?
Only time will tell, I guess. But it's a reminder that even in a world as glamorous as Hollywood, actions have consequences, and sometimes those consequences are pretty severe.
Now, going back to the MCU and this whole Doctor Doom thing, it really does feel like the end of an era. The Kang storyline just kind of evaporated.
It's like they had this grand plan for the next few phases of the MCU, and then bam, everything changed.
But in a way, it's kind of exciting, isn't it? Because Doctor Doom is such a classic Marvel villain. He's got this whole rich history and a totally different vibe than Kang.
Yeah, he's more complex, more layered, and he brings in a whole new set of possibilities for the MCU.
And it shows that even when they're forced to make changes, these big franchises can sometimes find a way to turn lemons into lemonade.
It's all about being adaptable and being willing to think outside the box, and sometimes the most unexpected events can lead to the most creative outcomes.
Now, zooming out a bit, Major's situation is really a reflection of the bigger picture, isn't it? It shows how precarious the balance is between personal conduct and professional success in Hollywood.
Especially in the age of social media where everything you do is under a microscope and public opinion can change in an instant.
It's a tough environment to navigate, for sure.
Yeah.
And studios are becoming much more cautious about who they align themselves with.
Yeah, we're seeing this trend where accountability and public trust are becoming major factors in decision-making, and studios are much quicker to distance themselves from anyone who might damage their brand image.
It's not just about box office numbers anymore. It's about ethics and perception and doing what's seen as the right thing.
So I guess the big takeaways from all this are that Jonathan Majors has been through some really rough personal stuff that's had a huge impact on his career. He's lost major roles, faced public scrutiny, and had to deal with some serious legal consequences.
But despite all that, he's expressed a desire to rebuild his life and his career, and he's taken some steps in that direction both personally and professionally.
It really shows how intertwined personal actions and professional outcomes are, especially when you're in the spotlight like Majors is, and it makes you wonder what the future holds for him.
Will he be able to come back from all this, or is this the end of the road? I guess only time will tell, but it's a story that raises some big questions about accountability, forgiveness, and the ever-changing landscape of Hollywood.
It really does, and it leaves us with something to think about, doesn't it? When the personal lives of public figures collide with these massive entertainment franchises that we all invest so much in, how do we reconcile their actions with the stories they're a part of? How do we decide when someone deserves a second chance? And how much weight should we give to their personal struggles? It's a complicated issue with no easy answers, and it's something that we as consumers of entertainment need to grapple with.
Yeah, because ultimately it's our choices, our views, our support, or lack of support that shapes the future of these stories and the careers of the people who tell them. So it's up to each of us to decide where we stand and what we believe in.
And that's something worth thinking about, isn't it?
It is.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Absolutely. Until next time.
Yeah, see you then.